Hi, I'm Adam Drake from Team Losi Racing in Novarossi. I'm going to just go over today the engines that I use in my TLR 8 buggy and 8T 2.0 truggy. The first engine that I use for the buggy is the Novarossi BTTS engine. It's a 4-port engine. This is pretty much what I run at more or less all the tracks. The setup that I use for this engine is a 6mm Venturi. I also always use a Losi steel flywheel with 2 composite and 2 aluminum clutch shoes. On the aluminum shoes I use green springs and black springs on the composite shoes. For my truck I use the Novarossi Bonito, which is a 7-port engine. With this I generally use a 7mm Venturi, and for the clutch I use the Losi aluminum flywheel with 2 aluminum shoes and 2 composite shoes, gold springs on the aluminum shoes and green springs on the composite shoes. Now for both of these engines, they produce quite a bit of power. The BTTS is a little bit smoother power band. That's part of why I use it for the buggy. There are times when I also use the Bonito and buggy, but for most of the conditions in the US I stick with the BTTS. Both engines get very good fuel mileage, but with the BTTS being a 4-port, the fuel consumption is a little bit better. For both of these engines I use the Novarossi 9901 pipe. And then with that pipe I use the 410-21 header. And again, this is pretty much the standard setup that I use for pretty much all tracks. Another accessory that also helps with the fuel consumption and also making the tune of the engines a little bit more consistent and easy is the Novarossi pressure line cooler. This just helps cool the exhaust gases coming from the pressure line of your pipe that help pressurize your tank. With this I've seen an increase of anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds of run time per tank. And probably the most key component to having success with your Novarossi engine as far as tunability and reliability is the Novarossi C6 TGC glow plug. It's extremely important that you use Novarossi glow plugs with the Novarossi engines. I use the same plug for both engines. Under certain conditions I may switch to a hotter plug, the C5 TGC, but for off-road racing I always run this series of glow plugs from Novarossi. And again, my traditional or standard plug is the Novarossi C6 TGC. And as far as the carburetor goes, it's pretty simple. It's just a 2-needle carburetor. Also you have your idle adjustment screw. Depending on the fuel you use and which Venturi size, your needles can vary or change slightly, but a pretty good reference or starting point for both of these engines would be your low-speed needle pretty much at flush, and for your high-speed needle between 3/4 and 1 turn in from flush. But one of the things with the carburetor, especially for the BTTS, because I run a smaller Venturi, is to limit the throw of your carburetor. When you're setting the EPA on your radio, you want to make sure that you limit the EPA to where the carburetor slide is opening to the Venturi size. You don't want to have the slide open 8mm when you're running a 6mm Venturi. So it's really important to make sure that once you have the engine installed in your car and you're ready to go, pull the zip tie off, pull your air filter off, and when you set your EPA, make sure that it's opening just to the Venturi size or maybe 1 or 2% past that. That way it'll help just have a little bit more consistent tune. Another thing that I do just to ensure a little bit of safety is I actually run a zip tie around the boot of my carburetor here. That way it just helps helps this boot seal, and again keeps for a little more consistent tune. I hope this helps you guys out, and you enjoy your Novarossi engines as much as I do.